No. Ready to roll.
Good morning, everyone. This meeting is called to order. Mr. Trobman, has anyone signed up for public comment? Thank you very much. Good morning, Ms. Miller.
Good morning, sir.
How are we today?
Very well, thank you.
Good, good, good. No cases to reconsider under agenda item 3.
Correct, no cases.
Move the tax liability cases under agenda item 4. I believe we have one tax case to consider on docket 7. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, there's one case. It's case number TD-21-040-1221. Commissioner Demerson,
I agree with staff recommendation.
Commissioner Alvarez.
I agree with staff's recommendation.
And Mr. Chairman,
Agree with staff recommendation.
thank you.
No fair housing cases under agenda item 5.
Correct, no cases.
No pooled wage claim cases.
Correct, none pulled, but you should have received the wage claim short form dissent list for docket 7.
I move we accept staff recommendations on the remaining wage claim cases on docket 7.
I second the motion except for those cases in which I'm dissenting as reflected on the wage claim short form dissent list for docket 7.
I concur with the chairman's motion, except for the cases on which I'm dissenting as reflected in the wage claim short form dissent list for docket 7.
Motion passes with the exceptions noted. Let's move to agenda item 7, consideration of unemployment insurance cases on docket 7. Please proceed when you're ready.
Case number 2557196, Commissioner Demerson.
We should grant a rehearing in this case. In its appeal to the commission, the employer seems to be making an allegation of non-receipt of the appeal tribunal decision. Based on this allegation, we should rehear in order to provide the employer an opportunity to provide more information on this matter. Thus, we should rehear for timing in this testimony.
The decision should be affirmed. The employer did not allege any non-receipt of the AT decision. Additionally, as the employer participated in the AT hearing, they should have been aware that the decision would be issued. Therefore, the employer's appeal that was filed over a year late should be dismissed as late. Dismissed late CA appeal.
Rehear.
We will rehear this case.
Case number 2773617, Chairman Daniel.
The employer failed to establish a good cause for its non-appearance at AT1. However, the underlying chargeback determination is not supportable. TWC notified employers there would be no chargeback to Texas employers for claims filed due to COVID-19. The initial claim that resulted in the chargeback in this case would not have been filed but for COVID-19, and so the employer's account should be protected. Modify the AT. Employer did not establish good cause for AT1, no chargeback.
Commissioner Alvarez.
The AT decision should be modified. The employer failed to attend the AT1 hearing because they neglected to update their new address in commission records and therefore did not receive the notice of telephone hearing. The employer's non-appearance was well within the employer's control, and they did not have good cause for their non-appearance. Regarding the chargeback, the claimant was a temporary employee filling in with the employer until a permanent employee returned from leave. She was separated when the employee returned to work. Her work separation was involuntary and non-disqualifying for non-disqualifying reasons. Modify the AT, no good cause for the non-appearance at AT1, charge the employer's account.
The AG decision is at least partially supportable. The employer did have good cause to miss the first hearing due to non-receipt of the hearing notice. Concerning the chargeback issue, the employer's response to the chargeback notice its appeals, and its testimony during the second hearing make it clear that the claimant stopped working for the company when a temporary assignment concluded in 2019. That work separation was unrelated to the pandemic that occurred several months later. And since various public statements indicated that the CARES Act of 2020 eliminates any chargeback to the Texas employers due to COVID-19, it would be useful to have the Office of the General Counsel study these statements in the context of the CARES Act and furnish a legal opinion as to whether they effectively overrule the provisions of the labor code that would normally pertain to a non-pandemic related layoff from a base period employer. Accordingly, we should have the case resubmitted with an analysis from the Office of General Counsel as to whether protecting the employer's account based upon public statements would raise any compliance issues under the Federal Unemployment Tax Act and the current Texas Labor Code.
All right, we have not achieved a majority vote on the substantive issue in the case. There is a majority vote that the employer did not establish good cause, but there are 3 separate votes on the chargeback issue itself. May I recommend that we resubmit
Miller.
this case on a future docket? Yes, sir.
Thank you for that recommendation, but I'm going to go ahead and agree with Commissioner Demerson on this case.
Okay, we'll resubmit after the OGC memo requested.
Yep.
Case number 2814630, Commissioner Alvarez.
The decision is not supportable. The claimant separation agreement was not a general release of claims. It included restrictions on her post-employment activities during a non-compete and a non-disparagement clause. Further, the agreement states that the payment was made in consideration of the release of claims and other covenants. The payment was merely compensation of the covenants provided in agreement and was not severance. Reverse the AT, no severance, no overpayment.
The appeal tribunal decision should be modified. The claimant stated that she was not paid severance until August 8, 2020. The severance agreement itself states that the claimant would receive 8 weeks of severance pay. The severance payment did not meet any of the non-disqualifying circumstances found in section 207.049B of the Act. As such, the claimant should be disqualified from benefits for 8 weeks starting from August 2nd, 2020, which was the preceding Sunday from when the claimant first received severance pay. We should therefore modify the AT decision, severance disqualification from August 2nd, 2020 through September 26, 2020. Recalculate overpayment.
Reverse the AT, no severance, disqualification, no overpayment. Memo to investigate unreported earnings.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Demerson, and we will send a memo.
Case number 2825426, Commissioner Alvarez.
The AT decision should be reversed. On the timeliness issue, the claimant's appeal to the AT should be deemed timely because the claimant made an address change within the appeal time limits. On the separation, the claimant's statement that she had a couple of drinks the night before the date of the final incident was not an admission that she was under the influence of alcohol at work. This statement was not sufficient evidence to conclude that the claimant committed misconduct. The employer has provided no firsthand direct evidence that the claimant tested positive for drug or alcohol. The employer failed to provide sufficient evidence to establish misconduct connected with the work. I would not agree to a rehearing in this case because the employer had advance notice of what evidence it needed to provide. The notice of telephone hearing provided a list of documents that the employer should provide, but the employer provided nothing. Reverse the AT, timely AT appeal, no misconduct, chargeback.
We should modify the appeal tribunal decision. First, I do not contest the timeliness of the claimant's appeal. Concerning the job separation, the claimant was discharged when she tested positive for alcohol and was visibly impaired at the workplace. The employer had a strict policy on alcohol and drugs at the workplace. Although the claimant alleged that she was unfamiliar with the employer's policy, she confirmed that she had received the employer's handbook, but never looked at its contents. Since the claimant admitted that she had consumed alcohol the night before the incident and furthermore provided statements in her fact findings documents that she had tested positive for alcohol at the workplace, the claimant's actions were a violation of the employer's policy and constituted misconduct connected with their work. Hence, we should modify the appeal tribunal decision, timely claimant appeal, misconduct, reimbursing employer not billed.
Reverse the AT, timely claimant appeal, no misconduct, bill reimbursing employer.
Commissioner Alvarez, this is a reimbursing employer. I believe your vote was to charge the employer. Did you intend to say that the employer should be billed?
I'll tell you right now. I would agree with Chairman Daniel on this case.
Thank you.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Demerson.
Case number 2907043, Commissioner Dimerson.
We should modify the appeal tribunal decision. First, I do not contest the timeliness of the claimant's appeal. Concerning the job separation, the claimant was terminated when she violated the employer's code of conduct by issuing refunds to an alleged significant other, her boyfriend. The employer's policy prohibited employees from engaging in transactions with those whom they have significant personal connection. Although the claimant alleged that she began her romantic relationship after the final incident, this argument is unpersuasive. Moreover, per the claimant's fact-finding statements, it can be reasonably deduced that the claimant and her boyfriend had known each other since about Halloween of 2019. Since preponderance of the evidence suggests that the claimant engaged in a transaction in violation of the employer's policy, her actions constituted misconduct connected with the work. Hence, we should modify the AT decision, timely claimant appeal, misconduct, no chargeback, adequate employer response. In the alternative, we should conduct a rehearing in this case, since the record was inadequately developed about the timeline leading to the claimant's romantic relationship. We should rehear this case to obtain testimony and further develop the record about the circumstances surrounding the claimant's relationship.
The decision should be affirmed. The best available evidence indicates that at the time of the transaction in question, the claimant was not in a romantic relationship with the customer. She only knew him as a customer during the final incident. While the claimant may have later started a romantic relationship with the customer, doing so did not violate the employer's policies. Therefore, the employer has not shown misconduct. Affirm the AT, timely claimant appeal, no misconduct, chargeback.
Modify the AT, timely claimant appeal, misconduct, no chargeback, adequate employer response.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Alvarez.
Case number 3003925, Commissioner Alvarez.
The decision is not supportable. The claimant quit when she was required to return to the office after working from home. This required her to transfer to a location 45 minutes away from her house. Additionally, although the claimant tested negative for COVID-19, her supervisor did not allow her to return to the office because she still had COVID-19 symptoms. The employer only presented secondhand testimony, which is insufficient to overcome the claimant's credible and persuasive firsthand testimony that she was not allowed to return because she still had COVID-19 symptoms. As a requirement to transfer to a new location unreasonably increased, the claimant's commuting distance, and due to her ongoing medical issues, the claimant had good cause to quit. Reverse, no voluntary leaving, bill employer, void adequate response. In the alternative, I would agree to rehear this case to further develop the record regarding the claimant's transfer to a new location.
We should modify the appeal tribunal decision concerning the job separation. The claimant's doctor had denied her attempted extension of her FMLA leave. Although the claimant alleged that she was suffering from symptoms of COVID-19, her doctor had substantiated that the claimant was in fact suffering from allergies and was authorized to work. Furthermore, the claimant's argument that she was not allowed to return to work by the employer is unpersuasive. Although the claimant's doctor had cleared her for work, she failed to present the requisite documentation for the employer's review and thereafter quit her job. Since the preponderance of the evidence dictate that the claimant resigned for personal reasons unrelated to the work, her conduct constituted a voluntary quit without good cause connected with the work. Therefore, we should modify the appeal tribunal decision, voluntary leaving, reimbursing employer not billed, sever the adequate employer response issue.
We're here to develop the record on where the claimant worked prior to being transferred, whether she previously agreed to work at other locations, and when she was expected to report to the new location.
We will rehear the case.
Case number 3006919. Commissioner Alvarez,
The decision should be modified. The claimant filed a valid claim regarding the job separation. The claimant was separated when her client of over 20 years passed away. The claimant spoke to the employer and no further work was available at the time. So the claimant filed for unemployment benefits. The claimant was offered work several weeks later and she accepted the offered work. However, since that occurred after she filed for benefits, it is not relevant to the job separation at hand. The claimant was separated for reasons other than misconduct. She requested additional work, no further work was available, and she waited 5 days to file for unemployment benefits. She should be qualified for benefits. Modify the AT, valid claim, no misconduct, chargeback, and set aside adequate response.
We should modify the appeal tribunal decision. First, I agree that the claimant filed a valid claim. Concerning the job separation in the home health care industry, the employment relationship continues until either party clearly notifies the other party that the employment relationship is ended. Here, the claimant notified the employer of her intent to sever the employment relationship by filing her initial claim for unemployment benefits. As the employer's testimony clarified that further work was available to the claimant at the time of her separation, the claimant's resignation rendered her without good cause connected with the work to quit. Hence, we should modify the appeal tribunal decision, valid initial claim, voluntary leaving, no chargeback, sever the adequate employer response issue.
Modify the AT, valid claim, no misconduct, chargeback, void adequate response.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Demerson.
case number 3013375. Commissioner Dimerson,
The commission should grant a rehearing in this case. The parties are in dispute regarding the claimant's schedule during her final days of employment. The claimant contends that the employer took her off the schedule, while the employer states that the claimant did not show up for several shifts. A copy of the claimant's schedule should be critical evidence to make a proper disposition in this case. As such, we should hold a rehearing for a copy of the claimant's schedule from April 1st, 2021 to April 13th, 2021.
The decision is supportable. The claimant stopped reporting to work after she was removed from the schedule. The employer admits the claimant did not transmit a notice to quit to a supervisor, correction, to her superior. The claimant never received a call from the employer to verify her status before she was removed from the schedule. The employer has not provided sufficient evidence to establish misconduct. Affirm, no misconduct, chargeback.
Rehear.
We will rehear the case.
case number 3014849. Commissioner Alvarez,
The decision is not supportable. The claimant was discharged on May 14, 2021 for failing to finish a report and tardiness, last occurring on April 15, 2021. The employer has provided no explanation as to why they waited a month to fire the claimant, and there is no evidence to suggest the delay was for anything other than the employer's convenience. As the most recent act of alleged misconduct occurred a month prior to the claimant's discharge, the alleged incidents were too remote in time. The claimant was discharged for reasons other than the misconduct connected with the work. Reverse AAT, no misconduct, chargeback, void adequate response.
We should modify the appeal tribunal decision. It was the claimant's responsibility to ensure that the report in question was timely filed. In addition, the claimant made changes to the report in violation of the CFO's specific instructions. Because the claimant made unauthorized changes to the report and failed to file the report by the deadline, the claimant mismanaged her position of employment. We should modify the AAT decision, misconduct, no chargeback, sever the adequate response issue.
Reverse the AT, no misconduct, chargeback, void adequate response.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Demerson.
case number 3016574. Commissioner Alvarez,
The decision is not supportable. The claimant filed his continued claim after attending a 20-minute orientation meeting with the employer. The claimant discovered that he would not be able to get a security badge to perform the work because he did not have a driver's license. There is no evidence the claimant was aware he was required to have a driver's license prior to attending the orientation meeting. As the claimant was filing for benefits and required to accept suitable work when he attended the orientation with the employer, he should not be penalized and disqualified for benefits for attempting to seek work that he was ultimately unqualified to perform. The claimant's inability to perform the work for the employer caused the claimant to be discharged for reasons other than misconduct connected with the work. Reverse the AT, no misconduct, no overpayment.
We should affirm the appeal tribunal decision because the claimant did not get his security clearance as required. He was discharged for misconduct connected with the work. Thus, we should affirm the AT misconduct overpayment of $2,262.
Reverse the AT, no misconduct, no overpayment.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Dimerson.
Case number 3032428, Commissioner Alvarez.
This case should be reheard. This separation was previously ruled on in an additional claim dated May 24, 2020, filed in a prior benefit year. Fact-finding statements from the additional claim were considered in this case, despite not being entered into evidence. The claimant was not provided the opportunity to review or provide testimony regarding those statements. It would be improper to base a decision on statements not entered into the record. As such, this case should be reheard to enter into evidence the fact-finding statements and provide the parties an opportunity to testify as to their contents. Rehear.
I should modify the appeal tribunal decision. The job separation occurred when the claimant stopped working in order to quarantine due to COVID exposure and to test for COVID-19. Thus, the claimant should be qualified for benefits and the employer's account should be protected from charge because the job separation resulted from the disaster. Accordingly, we should modify the AT decision, no voluntary leaving, no chargeback, separation caused by disaster.
I concur with Commissioner Dimerson.
Ms. Miller, and I would agree with the commissioner and the chairman on this vote as well.
Thank you. We have a unanimous decision.
Case number 3035525, Commissioner Dimerson.
The appeal tribunal decision should be reversed. Before discharging the claimant, the employer had listened to a portion of the claimant's calls and discovered that the claimant had engaged in numerous policy violations, including disclosing confidential information and failing to follow customer call procedures. In addition, the claimant had received a final warning. Because the claimant did not appear for the hearing, the employer's testimony should be given the greatest weight and establishes that the claimant's actions constituted work-connected misconduct. We should therefore reverse the AT decision, misconduct, no chargeback, adequate employer response.
This decision is supportable. The employer has not provided sufficient evidence to establish the claimant was aware her job was in jeopardy. As such, the claimant's actions did not constitute misconduct connected with the work. Affirm the AT, no misconduct, chargeback.
Reverse the AT, misconduct, no chargeback, adequate employer response.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Alvarez.
Case number 3043618, Commissioner Dimerson.
The appeal tribunal decision should be reversed. The claimant had concerns about his working environment and brought them to the attention of the employer's human resources department. An employer witness stated that he gave the claimant several options to pursue his concerns, including filing a grievance, filing a formal complaint, or going through the chain of command all the way through to the VP. The employer witness continued by stating that the claimant told him he was not going to do any of those things. Accordingly, since the claimant did not adequately escalate his concerns, he quit without work-connected good cause. We should therefore reverse the AT decision, voluntary leaving, reimbursing employer not billed, adequate employer response.
The AT decision is supportable. The claimant was repeatedly subjected to harassment and bullying in the workplace and made several complaints to management about the issues. The employer's HR witness testified that the claimant complained about these things that were required job duties, but he also testified that he did not really remember what the claimant complained about. The employer failed to take reasonable steps to address the claimant's concerns, and he quit as a result. The claimant had good cause connected with the work to resign from the job. Affirm the AT, no voluntary leaving, bill reimbursing employer.
Reverse the AT, voluntary leaving, reimbursing employer not billed, adequate employer response, memo to investigate unreported earnings.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Alvarez.
Case number 3058842, Commissioner Dimerson,
We should affirm the appeal tribunal decision. The claimant volunteered to resign after the employer's client company was reducing its staff due to a reduction in COVID-19 cases. The evidence dictates that the claimant had expressed her interest to quit so that other nurses at the workplace would not lose their jobs. The employer detailed that the claimant was not on the employer's demobilization list and moreover clarified that she had continued available work at the time of her resignation. Since the claimant quit when continued work was readily available, her separation constituted a voluntary quit without work-connected good cause. Hence, we should affirm the appeal tribunal decision, voluntary leaving.
The AT decision should be reversed. The employer was required by state mandate to reduce its staffing by 20% each week. They asked nurses if they would be willing to be a part of the reduction in the first week. Nurses were not necessarily going to be let go if they said yes, and were not necessarily going to be able to stay if they said no. Given the employer's required staff reduction, the claimant's work separation was imminent. She was involuntarily separated due to a layoff and should not be disqualified. Reverse the AT, no misconduct.
Affirm the AT, voluntary leaving.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Alvarez. And that was the last case pulled for additional discussion on docket 7. You should have received the UI short form dissent list for docket 7.
I move we accept staff recommendations on the remaining UI cases on docket 7.
I second the motion except for those cases on which I'm dissenting as reflected on the UI short form dissent list for docket 7.
I concur with the chairman's motion, except for the cases on which I'm dissenting as reflected in the UI short form dissent list for docket 7.
Motion passes with the exceptions noted.
Thank you.
Thank you. This brings us to the end of agenda items 3 through 7. We'll take a short recess. All right, we're back with agenda item 8. This is the WIOA CSP for program years 2020 through 2023 modifications.
Hi, good morning, Chairman Daniel, Commissioner Alvarez, Commissioner Dimerson, Mr. Serna. For the record, I'm Joel Mullins with the Workforce Development Division. In June of 2020, the U.S. Department of Labor approved TWC's WIOA Combined State Plan for program years 2020 to 2023. WIOA requires states to submit modifications to their state plans at the conclusion of the first 2-year period of any 4-year plan to reflect changes in labor market and economic conditions or other factors affecting the implementation of the plan. Today, for your consideration, is the required 2-year modification to the Wioa Combined State Plan for program years 2020 to 2023. Along with various minor updates, this plan modification includes the following: a general summary and economic analysis of the impact that the COVID-19 pandemic has had on TWC operations and the Texas economy, updated labor market information and economic and workforce analyses, information related to the implementation, assessment, and evaluation of programs, requests for programmatic waivers, and specific program updates to the vocational rehabilitation, adult education and literacy, agricultural outreach, and senior community service employment program sections of the plan. This morning, staff recommends approval of the proposed Wioa State Plan modification for posting for a 30-day public comment period. At the end of the public comment period, staff will bring back those comments and any additional modifications for your review and consideration. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you've got.
Any comments or questions?
None here, Chairman.
All right,
Is there a motion?
Yes, sir. I move that we approve the Wioa Combined State Plan 2-year plan modifications for posting for a 30-day public comment period.
second.
Seconded, we're unanimous. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
You bet. We have nothing under agenda item 9. This is agenda item 10, statewide initiatives. I move to take down from the table the 2 initiatives that we placed on the table last week for further consideration. If there's no objection, we'll do that. Hearing no objection, I will consider both proposals. If we would, let's just consider them simultaneously. The way I think the debate left off last time was there was not much disagreement on the what it seemed to be the available dollars. Staff reported back the balances. As I understand the balances, there's about $9 million in available money from the apprenticeship expansion and just a little over $12 million in money in WIOA statewide reserves. In looking at it, understanding what can happen with various funding, for example, I don't think we can spend the apprenticeship money on some of the nursing training that Commissioner Alvarez had outlined, which is why WIOA money is needed. You sort of bounce back and forth, just the different considerations for the money. I think it takes a little bit of both pools of money to make these particular programs or these initiatives really work out. I kind of looked at it, tried to understand kind of how this would get laid out. And I would offer the following amendment for consideration. My view of my own initiative to do a statewide, state-directed apprenticeship program for some key areas that are outlined in the paper is a little bit of a new way to look at it. I think it provides a lot of innovation. But sometimes when you're being innovative, you don't want to tie up all your resources. Here's what I would recommend for consideration. I would willingly reduce my project to $2 million in apprenticeship expansion money, $2 million in WIOA money for a total of $4 million. That would leave $2 million for a RFP that was originally planned for 3 million. I'm assured by staff that 2 million can definitely get the job done. At least $5 million for Commissioner Alvarez's healthcare professions apprenticeship program. I think that's important. This healthcare professions program, this has been a key area of concern, even pre-pandemic, in terms of the number of nurses in the state. On the WIOA side, I'd be asking for 2 million for that. It leaves 10 million for other purposes. I do think that Commissioner Alvarez had requested 10 million for his, and so both of those could be done. It would leave the coffers empty for this year, although I think in summer we approach next year. There is another 2.5 million in WIOA funds. It has a fairly short time frame on it. I believe June is when that money has to be spent. There's a couple of good ideas that staff has for spending that. I'm not considering that money in our totals here today. I think that staff's use or proposed use for that money that we'll consider here in a week or two, I think solid, and lets us get that money spent. So with that amendment, it would be 2 million and 2 million for the paper I advanced last week. That would be the only change to my paper. That would leave 2 million for the RFP that had been previously contemplated, and it would leave 5 million and 10 million, I believe, available for the nursing apprenticeship program. That amendment would need a second for us to proceed on.
Chairman, I like what you've laid out. This is good. I appreciate what you've put together here. Makes a lot of sense. So I have two things that I'd like to add to that, though. We have an active RFA out there right now, and I'd really like to keep that active if possible. And I think what you laid out here allows us to still put $2 million to reduce that $3 million RFA to a $2 million RFA. The other thing is, on your discussion paper, you laid out automotive service technicians, mechanics, production machinists, assemblers, fabricators, logistics management, and supply chain analysis. I got some of this information from LMCI to see what the projected jobs were. I appreciate what you've put forward. The only thing that I asked, and what you've laid out again, I'm leaning towards agreeing with it, with just an exception to two things, just not to cause any confusion in the healthcare industry. Yesterday, I was in Hidalgo County, where Richard Cortez gave South Texas College $2 million through the CARES money to expand capacity building by hiring instructors to teach the class, which is a direct recommendation from the committee that was put together in the report that we shared with the offices. The only thing I would ask is if we could omit your nursing assistant and patient care technician and move those over, because those are very similar to a medical assistant in what I have in my layout. And so with that said, I would be okay with that. But nursing assistant, patient care assistant, if we could remove those from your discussion paper, move those over to ours or to the other discussion that we laid out, it would just eliminate any confusion. But other than that, I'm pretty comfortable with what you've laid out. I do tend to want to still keep the RFA active. We have an RFA out there for $3 million. I'd like to keep that active if possible, if you would be in agreement to that.
I don't know of any active RFAs. We had a proposed RFP, but that's the only thing I'm aware of.
Let me see. Yes, so I am looking. And you're right, Chairman, we do have an active RFA of $3 million that was stated last week by Courtney.
Proposed, but not active, right?
Yes, proposed. And if Courtney's here, she can go into detail about that. But you're right, it was proposed.
Morning, Commissioners. Mr. Cerna, Courtney Arbor for the Workforce Division for the record. That's correct. Commissioners, last Wednesday, I believe we were set to publish an RFA with expansion dollars for $3 million in total, and we delayed that until the discussion today. So it sounds as though you would have us move forward with publishing that with the $2 million amount if what you've discussed is approved.
Mhm.
And is it your belief that 2 million would be, would still leave that a viable kind of RFP process?
Yes, we believe so.
If I could compliment you on your choice of Red Raider colors today, I appreciate it.
Or a day late on Valentine's.
I bet the others don't like the Red Raider colors.
Javelinas like Red Raider colors. Yes, they do.
So Chairman, unless Commissioner Demers, you have anything to add, but I do
No,
like
no,
what you're
I-
laying
I-
out,
Yeah,
Chairman.
I think I like what has been laid out. It seems
Mhm.
like it accomplishes what we were trying to accomplish. And I want to thank staff for going back, really digging deep and getting to solutions for us. I did want to say that I did hear from Mark Sherry with Baylor Scott and White, Tamara, the CEO of the Capital Area Workforce Solutions Board, and also Ada with DHR as well. And those employers are pretty excited about the opportunities that are being presented. So I think what's been laid forward is pretty plain and simple and gets us to where we want to go.
Is there a second on the amendment so we can move forward with consideration?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion?
So I just want to make clear that we did exclude the nursing assistant and patient care.
We'll pull that out and push it to yours. I would, in doing that, I would ask that staff, first of all, that's fine.
Okay.
I understand your interest in avoiding confusion. I would ask that staff, though, in some way, emphasize in the application process for the initiative that I've advanced that this is particularly useful for employers with multiple locations. And where an employer with multiple locations can work across multiple boundary lines. I just want to make sure that emphasis is in place.
Chairman, with those amendments added and with the Commissioner Demerson's remarks, I will agree to that as well.
All right. Is there any objection? Hearing no objection. That's what we'll do.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Ms. Arbor. Agenda item 11. No. Let's see.
Legislative update.
Legislative
Yes,
report?
sir.
All right. Oh, man, it's the A team today. When's the last time you presented in front of the commission?
October, November,
October. He remembers the date and
roughly. I can dig deeper if you would prefer.
time. You've been hiding.
Good morning, Chairman Daniel, Commissioner Alvarez, Commissioner Demerson, Mr. Cerna. For the record, Christopher Grunning, Government Relations. As was reported to you last week, U.S. House and Senate leadership have reportedly reached an agreement on top-line funding levels for the remainder of the fiscal year, although nothing has been released. Because that process will take some time to work on the full appropriations package, Congress plans to pass a continuing resolution before current federal government funding ends this Friday, February 18th. Last Tuesday, February 8th, the U.S. House passed H.R. 6617, the Further Additional Extending Government Funding Act. This measure extends federal government funding until March 11th, 2022. The Senate is expected to take up the CR this week. We will continue to monitor and report any developments from Congress. This concludes my remarks. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any comments or questions?
None here, Chairman.
When does session start?
Next January,
Next January. Thank you.
we're refraining from putting a specific day in our mind yet.
Thank you.
Of course.
Like next January, like the one that's coming?
We have 11 months.
That seems-
We'll be seeking your input.
No more questions?
None here,
I
Chairman.
will let him off easy today. Thank you, sir.
Have a great day.
All right, an executive director's report.
Having been out.
I'm
for-
sorry, Brian Daniel, Texas Workforce.
Yes, sir. I
Solutions.
recognize that the name underneath each one of you all. Having been out for the past 2 weeks, I just wanted to recognize the great work that Randy Townsend did and the rest of the executives. As usual, I would have expected nothing less, but, and I do appreciate y'all's support as well. So, and it's good to be back home. I have nothing else.
Mr. Cerna, I would say that Mr. Townsend performed well in your absence. He seemed to work around the clock. And his witty repartee during the commission meetings was very much appreciated. I personally, have no interest in seeing a replacement, but your substitute, I thought, really added dimension to the meetings. Well, thank you very much. Good to see you back. I'm glad you're feeling well, and it's good to see you back up on your feet. Absolutely.
Mr. Chairman, did Mr. Cerner greet you guys with, he was the Valentine walk coming back? That's how he greeted me. He told me that he was the Valentine coming back to the agency.
Well, I talked to Mr. Cerna yesterday, and he did not advance that theory to me.
I thought I would do that after Valentine's.
Makes perfect sense. Is there any other order of business coming before the commission today?
None here, Chairman.
None.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Chairman, I move that we adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn, and we're adjourned.